After undergoing 3 consecutive high-intensity surgeries, I closed my eyes, kicked my legs, and died. The underworld saw my full merits. Coincidentally, Lord Yen was about to be promoted, and I was pushed onto the stage to become the next Lord Yen. 1. The person involved expressed great fear. Black and white impermanence took me to the Yenwang Palace, and I asked many questions on the way. Is the position of Lord Yen considered a civil servant? Yes. Do you have a house to live in? Yes. Do you have a lot of money? White impermanence gave me a direct and disdainful look. No, would you die if you added a few more words? Oh, they're already dead. I received the official seal from the former Lord Yen in front of the main hall. In the previous second, his serious face seemed relieved, as if he had thrown away a hot potato. I took the seal with trembling hands. Big brother patted my shoulder. Do well, you can also be promoted. When he left, he sighed, shaking his head. What a good girl. Lord Yen, big brother, you're making me nervous. Black and white impermanence had something to do and left, casually picking up a little ghost to take me to my residence. The little ghost introduced me along the way. Passing by a river, this is the Wangchuan River. Look at the Naiha Bridge above. Newly dead souls need to queue up here. Don't jump in if you have nothing to do, it's better to die than to live. At the end of the bridge stood a stooped old man, wearing a black hood, his face indistinct, mechanically handing out bowls of soup. Under a dark tree next to him stood a young man. Long hair covered most of his figure, sharp contours on the side of his face, and ink-like eyes staring at the Wangchuan River in a trance. Thinking about the words of the little ghost just now, I reminded aloud, hey, stay away from Wangchuan River. He looked at me, and with just one glance, he amazed me. His eyebrows were like distant mountains, his nose high and straight, and his ink-like eyes stared straight at me. Then there was a moment of surprise, as if looking at someone else through me. I felt a little annoyed in my heart. I thought I was kindly reminding him, but it was like talking to a wall. Being taken to my residence by the little ghost, I saw the villa in front of me, which belonged exclusively to Lord Yen. My mouth opened wide enough to swallow a ghost. Who would have thought that the villa I couldn't afford when I was alive became my residence in the afterlife? The furniture inside was neatly arranged, just the way I liked it. On the first day, I went to work on time, but there was no one. The second time, I slept in for 2 hours before going to work and still, no one came. Laughing to death, this place suits me. After that, I simply didn't go to work and lay down to sleep in the big villa. 2. The underworld had no daytime, it was always gloomy with thick fog. However, the temperature was particularly low this night. Even under the blanket, I could feel the biting cold, making it difficult for a ghost to sleep. The door downstairs was knocked, accompanied by the cries of little ghosts. My lord, something bad has happened. There's a vengeful spirit coming. In the end, black and white impermanence woke me up from bed, and I put on the ugly Yenwang robes and sat on the Yenwang Palace. I yawned with a cool breeze. Finally, I understood why the previous Lord Yen cried tears of joy. It turns out this position has flexible working hours. Who is downstairs? Surin. Surin was still wearing the beautiful strapless dress she had before she died. Her wet hair hung in front of her, and blood continued to drip, as if it would never end. I looked up and was scared awake. I had only been a ghost for a few days, why did I have to endure all this? Feeling the urge to escape, black impermanence gave me a sympathetic look. I heard that the Ghost King is inspecting the underworld recently. Don't get caught. I swallowed my saliva, took out the Lord Yen manual given by the previous Lord Yen, and strictly followed its instructions. To deal with a vengeful spirit, you must understand their grievances and cause of death before sending them away. I cleared my throat and asked, do you have any grievances? Surin seemed to take a while to understand what I was saying, and in the end, she just shook her head, her voice hoarse, I don't know. Do you remember how you died? This time she took even longer to react, and in the end, she just shook her head. but I noticed the source of her bleeding. Her right wrist had an abnormal bluish-purple color, and there was a deep wound that revealed bone. "Aren't you committing suicide?" As soon as I uttered a syllable, a faint fragrance wafted over, and I was pressed into the arms of the person behind me. Do not stimulate a vengeful spirit who doesn't know their cause of death in front of them. Otherwise, they'll turn into a fierce ghost. Don't you know that as Lord Yen? A stern questioning voice came from above. I looked up at him and recognized him as the ghost who mistook my good intentions for foolishness. I patted his hand twice, and he finally mercifully moved his hand away. Black and white impermanence stood aside, looking at each other, hesitant, but urgently signaling me with their eyes. I was fortunate. "Are you the Ghost King? Please have a seat. How would you like to handle this case?" He sat down, sipping the tea on the table. I didn't have the heart to tell him it was my tea. You need to help her recall her experiences before death and the cause of death. If the grudge is too heavy, satisfy her wishes depending on the situation. Then, send her to reincarnation. Recall her experiences before death? Does that mean going back to the mortal world? I was happily thinking about where to travel after completing this task. He seemed to understand what I was thinking and casually said, "I'll go with you." This ruined my dream of a free trip, and I resented him. Also, I'm not the Ghost King. I'm just the Ghost King's attendant, Xia Yunshin. After saying that, he took another sip of my tea. I said with no expression, "That's the tea I drank." Xia Yunshin's expression cracked for a moment, and the next second, he calmly put the teacup down. "Move, are you the Lord Yen or am I the Lord Yen?" I pushed him away, leaving black and white impermanence shocked. These two are really unfamiliar with people. 3 days later, we set off, and Surin was placed in a bead for convenience. But why did I have to keep this bead at my home before departure? On the first night, dragging my exhausted body home. After work, I planned to wash up and sleep casually. But as soon as I opened the bathroom door, blood flowed out instantly, submerging my slippers. Surin lay peacefully in the bathtub, her cut wrist resting on the edge, drip, drip. Why sleep in the bathtub when there's a bed? I was 8 degrees louder with anger. I like it here, it's familiar. Is she committing suicide in the bathtub? Thinking of this, coupled with the overflowing blood in the bathtub, I was instantly covered in goosebumps, and my scalp tingled. I immediately woke up the neighbor next door, Xia Yunshin. Xia Yunshin, half asleep, had a cold tone. "What's the matter?" "Surin just slept in my bathtub, and it's all blood. I'm a little scared. Can I rest here for a while?" I looked at him pitifully. Xia Yunshin's eyebrows loosened a bit. "You used to, come in. What's wrong with me before?" I followed up and asked. "You used to be a doctor, right? Even doctors get scared." I sat on the sofa, and Xia Yunshin threw a blanket over my head. The cold and clear breath of the ice crystals suddenly enveloped me, similar to the fragrance on his body. "Sleep on the sofa and go back tomorrow. Is there no guest room? Don't talk nonsense. Go back now." I immediately shut my mouth. After that, Surin obediently stayed in the bead, and I spent 2 peaceful days. 3. Standing on the bustling street in the mortal world, basking in the warm sunlight, I felt a long-lost sensation. Xia Yunshin still had that long hair, and several old ladies selling hair chased after him for his contact information. I couldn't stop laughing. Xia Yunshin's eyebrows were tightly furrowed, reaching the limit of patience. I quickly pulled him into a bubble tea shop. "I told you to cut your hair shorter, but you didn't listen. Now, look at you." Coincidentally, the small TV in the shop was playing news. On the evening of March 22nd, the popular female star Su Xing was found dead in her home bathtub, suspected suicide. The police are still investigating, hoping to solve the truth soon. Su Xing. Same last name as Surin. Same cause of death. I touched the bead in my pocket. Fortunately, she couldn't hear it. At midnight, we sneaked into Su Xing's home. No, only I did. Xia Yunshan stood with his hands behind his back, strolling casually as if he were in his own yard. The furniture and sofa in the living room were covered with a thin layer of dust. We split up, and I went to Su Xing's bedroom. After searching for a while in the wardrobe, I found an old mobile phone. I didn't know if the old phone could find anything, so I charged it for a while. In the text message interface, almost all the messages were with her mother. Ran, I heard that you took on a part-time job and earned some money. Since we're tight on money at home, can you lend Mom a little? Ran, Mom's a bit tight on money lately. Can you lend me 5,000? Your dad gambled again recently, and we owe 30,000 at home. I saw you on TV. You're really my daughter. Mom recently set her eyes on a bag that costs 100,000. Your brother is getting married and needs to buy a house, 80,000. Remember to send me 300,000 every month. Almost all the messages were Su's mom asking for money, from cautiously requesting to openly demanding. And Su Xing gave it every time, making me furious. Is she a vampire? In the boring healing time, I opened the face mask and saw a face that was messy. He had not shaved for a long time, with beard stubble, dried food residue at the corners of his mouth, and a bit of secretion at the corners of his eyes. It made me extremely uncomfortable, and I suddenly pulled the face mask down to my neck. After that, I returned to the bedroom to search and unexpectedly found Su Xing's diary. 4. Sitting in a bustling bubble tea shop, I opened this diary. Su Ran's diary began with the introduction of light into her life. The first half of her life was bleak. Her father, addicted to alcohol and gambling, often vented his frustrations on Su Ran. Her mother, always weak, would passively stand by and let things unfold, while her undeserving brother was spoiled to the heavens. Finally, after passing the college entrance exam, she got into a decent university, escaping from her dilapidated home. She gained a confidant and encountered Zhou Feng, a senior who was a year ahead. Zhou Feng's persistent efforts made her flutter for a moment, but her humble and timid upbringing prevented her from taking that step. On the night of Zhou Feng's confession, she hid behind him, and as long as he stood there, she stood there with him. My life is so dirty, but he's so clean. How can I bear to tarnish him? A sudden sting in my nose made me feel as if I truly understood the conflicting emotions of liking someone but being afraid to get close. The turning point occurred on the day Su Ran was surrounded by hooligans. To cover tuition and living expenses, she worked part-time every day. However, that day, she was cornered by the hooligans, forcing her to hand over the hard-earned money from her job. Clutching the money tightly, as her clothes were about to be torn off, she thought of Zhou Feng. The next moment, Zhou Feng arrived, carrying the light, saving her. At that moment, she was like a drifting duckweed finding a harbor to rely on. They got together smoothly, and Zhou Feng treated her very well. After being discovered by talent scouts, she became a star, changing her stage name to Su Xing. I hope to be the only star for Zhou Feng. Even if the light is dim, he must know that this star shines for him. After winning her first major award, she and her confidant celebrated with a little alcohol. The next morning, waking up, she found herself in the bed of a certain famous director. Reporters, like a swarm of bees with cameras, rushed in. Su Ran, in nothing but her birthday suit, was trapped in a corner, with even the last bit of modesty exposed. Su Ran's scandal became a hot topic, and netizens questioned whether she had climbed the ladder through improper means. The company refused to handle the public relations, and online comments were both malicious and unbearable. She even dared not turn on her phone. She dared not think about how Zhou Feng would react if he knew about this. During Zhou Feng's business trip of half a month, Su Ran's mental state collapsed, eventually leading to her choice of suicide. This diary was so heavy, bearing a person's entire life, yet so light, as if it could easily end a life. Ironic, these keyboard warriors can easily ruin a person's life with a few taps. I lowered my eyes. Xia Yunshan glanced at me, remained silent for a while, and said, These rumor mongers, while I couldn't deal with them when alive, will surely suffer in the 18 levels of hell after death, cycling through the realm of beasts, becoming a pig in the slaughterhouse. Really? Can you decide that? While I cannot, the Ghost King can. As long as you don't find it cruel. People must pay the price for their actions. They might have just said something defamatory as a joke, but someone lost their life because of it. They should taste that bitterness. How can that be considered cruel? With the matter concluded, we took Sue Ran to the bathroom where she committed suicide, and the thief was nowhere to be found. The bathroom was clean, with no traces of blood. I released Sue Ran and gave her the diary. After a while, sobs rang out in the silence. Starting small and growing into a chorus of mourning, it was a heart-wrenching sound, seemingly a cry of despair. I'm unwilling. I'm unwilling. Why did it turn out like this? Why, when I haven't done anything morally wrong, did I end up like this? Sue Ran kowtowed to me, even though she was in a spiritual state. The sound of her forehead hitting the floor echoed in my mind. Begging the Lord to restore my innocence, begging the Lord to restore my innocence. Is this your wish? I crouched down to stop her from banging her head. Sue Ran tightly held onto my hand. Even if I have to die, I want to die with a clear conscience. I don't want to carry a dirty name to my death. All right. A white light entered my forehead from Sue Ran's, and Xia Yunshin didn't even have time to stop me. I stumbled when he pulled me up. Yin cannot interfere with Yang. Do you wish to violate this rule? His tone was somewhat stern. Didn't you say we need to fulfill the ghost's wish? I'm following the rules of the underworld. I meant without meddling in Yang affairs. After this is over, someone will come to clarify eventually. In that case, I'm just advancing the timeline. How can that be considered meddling? Xia Yunshin slowly released the hand he had gripped, putting it back into his pocket, his tone carrying a hint of chilliness. As you wish. Angry. I glanced at him inexplicably. It's not like he agreed, so why get angry? 5. Sue Ran's best friend is named Liu, and we went to find her based on the address. In theory, passing through walls as a ghost is a straightforward thing, but when I first arrived, Xia Yunshin immediately used magic to turn me into a solid entity. I hadn't even learned a single spell, let alone passing through walls. Being the lord of the underworld is truly frustrating. Xia Yunshin still had a cold expression, hands in his pockets, looking indifferent. Guard Xia, handsome Xia, good brother, take me in, please. I tugged at his sleeve, swaying gently as if being playful, and I could feel goosebumps forming. Xia Yunshin's ears turned slightly red, and he took a deep breath. All right, shut up. I'll take you in. Somewhat flustered, he held my wrist, and we passed through the wall. Such an innocent little guard. At this moment, Liu was still sleeping. I took her phone, which was charging on the bedside table, and used the fingerprint unlock. Did she really think winning the Best Supporting Actress award would make her a supporting role? Not even cannon fodder deserves that, humph. While flipping through her phone, I couldn't help but complain. As expected, I found her chat history with a certain creepy director. Liu claimed to have a beautiful best friend, a major award winner in the entertainment industry. The director, after sleeping with her, wouldn't feel like he downgraded. She only hoped for a chance to be the second female lead. She even sent the director several of Sue Ran's selfies, and the director immediately shared a hotel room number. Disgusting scum, seriously. I wished I could slap Liu right now. Don't curse. Huh. Take a look and tell me if she doesn't deserve it. I showed the chat history to Xia Yunshin. He pursed his lips, walked to the side, and remained silent. Do you have a spell that can make someone feel pain all over but can't find out what the illness is? You can't harm mortals casually. How is this casual? She committed a crime. As the lord of the underworld, it's my duty to eliminate harm. The mortal realm has its rules. Once you have the evidence, let's go. Xia Yunshen grabbed my collar and led me out. I felt deflated, letting him drag me along. On the way, I couldn't resist checking her email. There was a small anonymous account sending out the hotel room number to various paparazzi, claiming there was big gossip. Everyone had an idea of how big the gossip from this hotel could be, each one bringing a high-resolution camera hoping to capture something more intimate. The director claimed he was drugged by Su Ran and, in a daze, mistook her for his wife and slept with her. He even accused Su Ran of climbing into his bed to become the female lead in a movie, insisting he was innocent. I sent screenshots of the small account's email to the director. Recalled it after 2 minutes. I wonder if he saw it. A few minutes later. Was that you messing with those paparazzi? It seemed like he took quite some time to digest. I mimically used tone in my reply. No, director, what are you talking about? You don't want the role of the second female lead anymore. Director, that's not fair. I helped you sleep with Su Ran. Do you want to go back on your word? Do you still want your reputation as a director? Your threat was spot on, very well done. I was still immersed in the joy of watching them tear each other apart, didn't notice we were already on the street. A car whizzed by, and Xia Yunshen grabbed my shoulder, pulling me behind him. Do your eyes grow on your head? I'm just having a confrontation with that creepy director. I trust you won't ignore me. And besides, I'm already dead, can't die again. Whether you're afraid of pain or not, you're still a woman, hard to understand. I continued to bury my head in the phone, looking for evidence, not hearing Xia Yunshen muttering. After crossing the road, I belatedly noticed he was still holding onto my shoulder. I licked my lips uncomfortably, struggled a bit, and he let go. After organizing the evidence, we went to find Zhou Feng. He was lounging on the sofa, and there were quite a few empty wine bottles on the coffee table, filling the air with a strong alcohol scent. Su Ran struggled out of the beads and stared at Zhou Feng without blinking. I didn't stop her. Once he sobered up, I got straight to the point. Although the evidence was collected, I, as a deceased person, couldn't appear in public. Zhou Feng, as Su Ran's boyfriend, was the perfect fit. Over the next month, Zhou Feng worked tirelessly for this cause, and I believed he would succeed. There are still good people in this world. During the day, Xia Yunshen and I went to different tourist attractions for free travel, returning to Su Ran's villa at night. As for Xia Yunshen, initially, he said he was supervising me, but in the end, I led him astray. At night, I found the opportunity to mock him. I'll go with you. I imitated Xia Yunshen's expression and tone at that time, but it lasted less than a second. Oh, aren't you here to supervise me? Guard Xia also has a day when he's contradicted, ha ha ha. Xia Yunshen's face showed a trace of embarrassment. Quiet. I won't, I hadn't finished speaking when Xia Yunshen, sitting on the sofa, covered my mouth from behind, his other hand circling my waist. I ended up sitting on his lap. Feeling the warmth under me, my face turned red. Are you still going to speak? Was it really necessary? I couldn't say it. I vigorously nodded. I'll say. I think you don't want to talk anymore. I struggled, but he brought me even closer. I hurriedly shook my head. Finally, he let me go. Sulky. Su Ran's situation also progressed. Zhou Feng took Li Yu and the creepy director to court. To increase their chances of winning, he uploaded screenshots of their chat and the video of Su Ran and Li Yu drinking and drugging on social media, creating a hot search. This move crushed them, and they couldn't turn the situation around. This trick might work on Li Yu, but for a capitalist, it was insignificant. I had Su Ran occasionally go to the director's house to scare him and separately sent the evidence to the director's wife. I heard she was a wealthy lady, and the director could only have a place in the entertainment industry through her support. 6. The combat power of netizens is more formidable than I imagined. This hot search stayed at the top for a few days. In the recent red carpet event, both of them were visibly exhausted. I looked at the screen full of curses on my phone, finding it amusing. Looking quite worn out, busy with the lawsuit, huh? This woman is really shameless, betraying her best friend just for a role, how disgusting. This director looks creepy, he probably did a lot of this kind of thing. The daughter of a gambling king is not someone to mess with. Both the scummy man and woman can go to hell. Sue Ran is really pitiful. After working so hard, everything is ruined by them. And this woman is actually her best friend. Does she deserve it? Why can't these men control themselves? Can't they do it once and for all? This is karma. Sue Ran won't let them off. Not enough, not enough. This is just the beginning. Xia Yunshan passed by me with a cup of water, frowned. Stop looking at these unproductive things. How can you say it's unproductive? This is something that makes me happy. Looking at the water in his hands, I also felt a bit thirsty. Can you help me? Recently, it seemed like I always had him do this and that for me. He had no complaints so far, mostly just mocking my laziness. I forgot, he was the personal guard of the Ghost King, not someone like me who could order around lower-level civil servants. Thinking of this, I suddenly stopped. What? What do you want me to do now? Nothing, I'll do it myself. Under Xia Yunshan's gaze, I went to the water dispenser and poured a cup of water. His brows furrowed deeper and deeper, staring at the water in my hand for a long time before turning and leaving. He really hasn't been acting right lately. With the help of the daughter of the gambling king, the lawsuit went smoothly. Li Yu had no chance of turning things around in her life. I heard the creepy director was now a bit mentally unstable, muttering that Sue Ran was coming for him. Who would believe this if there weren't ghosts involved? The hashtag Sue Ran apology surged to the top. Sue Ran's last Weibo post was a selfie with the caption, "Finally finished work, can finally rest." Comments exceeded 1 million, all filled with apologies. Sister, I'm sorry, I spoke too loudly before. You can rest now. Sorry, miss. Sue Ran, you can rest now. The world is complicated. Next time, don't come back. She can finally rest. You don't need your fake apologies now. Who are you saying this to? Back then, when this happened, no one questioned the director about why he came out to play when he already had a wife. They only attacked her when she was alone. Now, she's not here, and you're doing this. The company is indifferent, and the online warriors are so disgusting. She's finally at peace. A person claiming to be Sue Ran's brother came out to comment, quickly rising to the top. Since childhood, Sue Ran was the cherished treasure of our family. At first, we didn't believe she would do such a thing. Now the truth is revealed. People, especially Sue Ran's fans, sympathized with him. Checking his profile, he was a relatively unknown gaming streamer who gained many followers because of his connection with Sue Ran. Seeing more and more people sympathizing with Sue Ran's brother, I sneered, he's here to exploit right after my death, calculating quite well. Let's see if Sister Sue Ran is willing. I extracted parts of Sue Ran's diary about her original family, along with the chat records on her mother's phone. But just this wasn't enough. I wanted this family to never have any connection to Sue Ran. Sue Ran had once thought about escaping from this family. She asked her mother, who suffered from her father's abuse, if she would go with her. But her mother hesitated, and Sue Ran knew her mother chose her brother. This time, she had to leave alone. She planned everything, waiting for the night to come. But instead of brightness, what awaited her was the shadow of her father, swaying with a raised bottle. Like a demon. She ran out with bruises all over, pleading for help from the neighbors, but everyone closed their doors, afraid of getting involved. So, she was dragged back by her alcoholic father without any dignity. If it weren't for Zhou Feng, she might not have survived. There must be surveillance on the street where Sue Ran escaped. I smiled again at Xia Yunshan. Don't even think about it. Why? Sue Ran is so pitiful, don't you want to help her? There are so many pitiful people in the world. Do I have to help them one by one? But if I encounter them, I will help. You are not suitable to be the lord of the underworld. I was stunned for a few seconds after hearing this. In fact, I knew I wasn't decisive enough. My compassion overwhelmed me, and I could never learn the resolute decision-making of those in power. But being so bluntly pointed out by Xia Yunshan, I couldn't help but feel a bit sour in my nose. Yeah, you're right. Xia Yunshan couldn't help me, so I could only rely on myself. 7. I went to Zhou Feng's house under the cover of night. These days, due to the lawsuit, he looked exhausted, and Su Ran could only feel anxious by his side. After some rest, I locked Su Ran inside a bead and took him to the nearby police station. If we only mentioned domestic violence, they probably wouldn't be willing to pull up surveillance footage from many years ago. Fortunately, a nameless female corpse from over a decade ago had been unearthed recently, and no one had claimed it. I remember that day I saw someone covered in wounds escaping, and not long after, they were dragged back. The clothes and the person in the photos looked somewhat similar. Although I knew where Su Ran's house was, finding clear surveillance footage from that night wasn't easy. On the third night, I finally saw the scene from that night. In the footage, Su Ran had blood on her head, glass shards stuck in her arms, and the dried blood had formed on her thin body, revealing bruises. She ran until she couldn't run anymore, caught by the person chasing her, and dragged back facing the ground. Although the footage was blurry, I still recognized him. The man looked just like the thief in the villa that night. There was silence in the control room until a young police officer blurted out, "This man is beyond inhumane." Zhou Feng's eyes were moist, and I turned off my phone after recording the screen. After organizing the evidence, I uploaded it and spent money to trend it. As expected, it reached the top in just half an hour. They say it's challenging for an honest official to decide family affairs, so let the netizens decide how much they care about Su Ran. Damn, is this Su Ran's father? Su Ran is so pitiful. How did she end up with such a father? Being beaten like this, it's heartbreaking. Ran, crying, the guy who commented first is Su Ran's brother or younger brother. He's really shameless. Go die. Do you deserve it? At Susugu, Su Ran is dead, and you still want to exploit her? If it weren't for these surveillance screenshots, how long would you continue acting? So damn disgusting. When she was a child, being beaten as a girl was useless. When she grew up, she became a money tree. This mother is a real vampire. Why isn't this man dead from alcoholism? Still alive. Hell is empty, and devils are on earth. Heaven is blind. Good people have no good endings, while evil people live so comfortably. Su Ran's brother quickly replied to the comment about him exploiting Su Ran. If it weren't for our family supporting her education, would she be where she is today? Wild dogs can also fake accidents. I logged into Zhou Feng's account to respond. You have a big face. She earned her tuition and living expenses through hard work. Before that, she couldn't afford to eat or dress warmly. After becoming famous, the money she gave to her family was enough to repay her past debts. What have you done? Useless. Don't ask me how I know. Your family's ugliness is well known. Refreshing. Ever since the falling out with Xia Yunshan, I had been holding back a fire in my heart. Now I finally let it out. Finally, Ran has a clean slate. Zhou Feng wiped away tears with his head down. Once the surveillance footage fermented, the police arrested Su Ran's father for intentional harm after verification. The famous brand bags in the house disappeared, and Su's mother, thinking Su Ran had come for her, became mentally unstable. She kept apologizing to Su Ran, regretting not reporting earlier. The indirect harm made people even more disgusted with her. Su Ran's brother was banned from the platform due to this incident, and unable to earn money, he got his hands chopped off for unpaid gambling debts, unable to support himself. The next morning, I felt a loosening in my forehead. The contract was completed. It was time to go. 8. Since the last time I left Su Ran's house, I hadn't seen Xia Yunshan again. Fortunately, Black and White Impermanence came to the mortal world for some business, or I wouldn't know how to return to the underworld. Before leaving, Su Ran asked me to let him meet Zhou Feng. I initially wanted to refuse since the deceased should not meet the living, but I thought about what Xia Yunshan had said to me. I decided to do the opposite. Who said someone with a soft heart couldn't be a lord of the underworld? I would show him. Black and White Impermanence cast a spell to reveal Su Ran, giving him half an hour to say goodbye before retreating outside. I leaned against the door frame and chatted, "What are you two doing in the mortal world this time?" The two of them hesitated for a long time and couldn't come up with a reasonable explanation. I rubbed my ears, collecting souls. Whose? Song family in North City. Jiang family in Beijing. No, for a classified mission, your testimonies aren't even consistent. You're lucky to have a good boss like me. If it were Xia Yunshan, you'd definitely be punished. Committing 2 mistakes in a row as the Lord of the Underworld, I was immediately sent to the Underworld Palace by Black and White Impermanence, fearing that I might escape. So, your secret mission is to capture me, and you didn't even inform me. That's too much. In the Underworld Palace, Xia Yunshan sat in the seat where I used to sit. Yanwang Xia Ke, disrupting the order of the mortal world privately, and violating the rules of the underworld, do you acknowledge your mistake? He sat behind the desk, his expression cold, looking down at me with lowered eyes. I didn't bother arguing and nodded indifferently, mistake. In that case, do you accept the punishment of 3 thunder whips? I accept. After saying this, I waited for a long time, but Xia Yunshan didn't give the order. I looked up at him. Pressing down on the handle of the judge's gavel, veins protruding, fingertips turning white, but his face showed no emotions. Execute immediately. Xia Yunshan clearly suppressed his anger. The force of the whip was no less than that of tearing muscles and pulling bones. I fainted from the pain after just 1 lash. I lay at home for over a month before barely recovering. Fortunately, Xia Yunshan had already finished his inspection and left, or I would have lost my appetite every day looking at him. But this lord of the underworld had too many things to manage. Besides the injustices of the new ghosts, even the trivial family matters of the tiny underworld ghosts had to be reported to me. Seeing a family of ghosts fighting and making a mess, I rubbed my temples. On the side, Judge Chui encouraged me, "How about going to Naiha Bridge to relax? Maybe you can witness the live broadcast of Lord Xia finding true love." Finding true love? Yes, didn't Lord Xia tell you? He has been guarding Naiha Bridge these days, supposedly looking for his lover from a past life. I pursed my lips. Anyway, it was a headache here, might as well go there and relax. Surprisingly, the manly-looking Xia Yunshan actually had true love, really wondering which girl was so unlucky. Before reaching Naiha Bridge, I could see Xia Yunshan holding the wrist of a girl on the bridge from afar. His gaze was fixed on her, as if he couldn't see anyone else in the world. The girl was a bit frightened, her wet eyes blinked, and the two of them stared at each other affectionately, as if no one else could interrupt. I suddenly stopped. I'm not going. Watching from here is also fine, my lord. You watch. I have to go back to deal with that family's matters. 9. The water of the Wangchuan River scalded painfully, and when I could open my eyes a little, I saw Xia Yunshan. But it was a bit different. At this moment, Xia Yunshan was flamboyant in a red robe, smiling carefreely. I realized that this was him from a long time ago. At that time, the 6 realms were in chaos, and his father, who was the Ghost King at that time, was busy annexing the human realm. Not only were there corpses scattered everywhere in the human world, but the ghost realm was also in disarray. He persuaded his father in vain and could only travel the world, helping both mortals and wandering cultivators whenever possible. In the end, the Ghost King was devoured by his own army of lost souls, and Xia Yunshan, in protecting his people, was severely injured. He fell unconscious at the foot of a mountain in the mortal world and was picked up by a passing girl. Coincidentally, she said her name was Yun Shanshan, and she looked exactly like the person who had a deep gaze with Xia Yunshan on the bridge that day. Despite her young age, Yun Shanshan had already earned the title of a divine doctor, but she couldn't save Xia Yunshan. To save him, she needed the spirit herb from the forbidden land of the Qingxian sect. Yun Shanshan, as a mortal, climbed the 999 steps of the celestial staircase, kneeling outside the gate with her head battered, yet she received no compassionate gaze from the disciples inside. I couldn't understand why a stranger, whom I had never met, like Yun Shanshan, would go to such lengths just to save him. If it were me, I would surely not be able to do what she did. Yun Shanshan knelt outside for a day and a night, and I stayed with her outside for the same duration. However, she disappeared in the morning while I took a short nap. In just a moment, there was chaos inside, with someone shouting, "Someone intruded into the forbidden land. Help!" Well, this little girl had more skills than I thought. Yun Shanshan, with the spirit herb, returned to the valley through the stars and moon. The valley had a formation, and even if someone outside had numerous abilities, they couldn't easily break the formation. Using only half of the herb, Xia Yunshan woke up. Though weak, Xia Yunshan was relentless with his words. "You went to such trouble to save me. Tell me, what do you want?" At that moment, he didn't have a bit of the composure he would later possess, behaving like a spoiled young master. "I know your identity is extraordinary. I saved you just to ask for your help in killing someone." Suddenly, a thought occurred to me. It couldn't be killing the sect master of the Qingxian sect. Qing Wuya, the sect master of the Qingxian sect. No wonder Yun Shanshan risked everything to save him, all because that sect master abandoned his wife and daughter. After listening, Xia Yunshan only said, "Okay." She used her blood to nourish the spirit herb and, along with treating Xia Yunshan, forcefully shortened the healing time from 2 to 3 months to just half a month. By the time Xia Yunshan fully recovered, Yun Shanshan could no longer step out of the door. To avenge this grudge, she was willing to sacrifice even her own life. Xia Yunshan led a group of people directly to the doorstep of the Qingxian sect master. When he raised his head to see Yun Shanshan, she had already left, but she left with a smile. However, I found it hard to breathe a sigh of relief. Even though the long-awaited revenge should bring joy, I suddenly saw a glaring white light in front of me, and my entire being was uncontrollably sucked into it. 10. I felt like I had a dream. I was just an outsider, witnessing the meeting of Xia Yunshan and Yun Shanshan, then heading to the underworld, where they continued their fate. Awake? Don't drool on my shoulder. I subconsciously wiped my mouth, but there was nothing. When I became fully conscious, I realized I was lying on Xia Yunshan's back. I was about to raise my hand to give him a slap when a tingling sensation, like ants gnawing at me, swept through my body. Ouch, what's going on? Why is it so painful? I slumped on Xia Yunshan's back, devoid of any strength. You fell into the Wangshuan River, so naturally, it's a bit painful. This herb is for your treatment, it pushed you down just now. Xia Yunshan handed me a plant, and I looked at it. Wasn't this the herb that revived Xia Yunshan in the memories? It managed to grow strong again after using up most of it. Why did it push me? Was it because... I was about to say it was because it was used on you. Shouldn't it be looking for trouble with you? Before I finished speaking, I was stunned. It was used up by Yun Shanshan, and then it came to trouble me. Coincidentally, when I fell into the Wangshuan River, I saw Yun Shanshan's memories. Could it be that I am Yun Shanshan? Then, who was the Yun Shanshan on the bridge that day? What did Yun Shanshan mean to Xia Yunshan? It suddenly seemed that Xia Yunshan's identity as the Ghost King wasn't that important anymore. Did you see your past life? I replied after a moment of silence. The spirit herb suddenly turned into faint light in my palm, merging into my body. Later, I learned that the spirit herb, taking on Yun Shanshan's appearance, wanted to eliminate both me and Xia Yunshan in one fell swoop. Who would have thought that Xia Yunshan immediately saw through it, closely watching its every move. However, I am Xia Ke, not Yun Shanshan. Even if we are reincarnations, we are not the same. All this fuss for nothing. 11. Afterward, I began to deliberately and inadvertently probe. For example, if a guy was with a girl from the first life, and the girl died, and the guy, unwilling to accept it, found love with a girl from the second life, I would ask the guy if he liked the girl from the first life or the second life. Also, when the male and female protagonists met in the first life, why did the male protagonist seek out her second life after the death of the female protagonist? I insisted that Xia Yunshan give an answer, or perhaps I was the only one expecting something in my heart. Perhaps he has loved them both. Revenge, gratitude, continuing fate, all possibilities, Xia Yunshan answered calmly, revealing nothing. Unable to extract any information, I was too lazy to stay at his place any longer. Just as I was about to leave, he suddenly asked me, "How did the spirit herb absorb into you that day?" "I didn't feel anything, it should be fine," I replied. That day, the herb mysteriously merged into my body, and I wasn't sure if it was meant to heal me. "It seems like you've merged well with your past life," he said. What? Is my past life that herb? This would be quite a shocking presence in the entire reincarnation world. So, while I was probing here and there with him, it turns out our relationship didn't concern me at all. I had been conflicted about whether he helped me because of Yun Shanshan, but it turns out I was overthinking it. I couldn't help but burst out, "So, do you like Yun Shanshan? I heard you've been looking for her." He frowned. "No, who told you that?" "I saw it. She smashed her head to save you, and you went to avenge her before. Your injuries had fully healed." I spoke with a hint of sobbing, turning away so he couldn't see. But what right did I have to question him about Yun Shanshan? "No, she's just my benefactor, nothing more." Xia Yunshan sighed helplessly. "Don't cry." He turned my body around, seemingly wanting to wipe away my tears. There were no traces of tears on my face, and I sniffed, retracting the crying tone. "I didn't cry, my nose is just stuffy." Xia Yunshan fell silent for a while, then said seriously, "I apologize for saying that you couldn't be the king of hell before. I was wrong." "Humph, now you know how to apologize." I pouted for a long time. 12. Lately, I felt that Xia Yunshan was showing me a bit too much attention. Can I say that? I was just about to go to work, and he was waiting at the door, then he took me there directly. Although it wasn't far. When I finished work, he appeared just as I stepped out of the hall of the King of Hell and took me back again. I had to admit, the spell of flying back and forth was really cool. I wanted him to teach me, but he adamantly refused. "You've been acting strange lately." After being intercepted by Xia Yunshan once again after work, I asked the question that had been bothering me these days. "Can't you tell?" Xia Yunshan approached me. "I can't." It seemed like I understood something, suppressing the crazy upward curve of my mouth. "Oh, you can't tell. Let's forget about it then." Xia Yunshan sighed heavily, turning his head. "Why do you always go off script?" I jumped behind him, stomping my feet in frustration, then hurriedly caught up, grabbing his sleeve. Xia Yunshan wrapped his big hand around my small one, looking at me seriously. "I like you, so would you marry me?" "No one, ghosts don't get married just because they like someone," I said discontentedly, as if I hadn't been in a relationship. "In my world, if you marry me and become the queen, you can do whatever you want without constraints." Xia Yunshan kissed my forehead. "Then I want to learn your flying spell." "That's not possible." "Why?" "It's just not possible." End of the story.